me tell you how it will be.
Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host. You know that music. I'm your host, Kevin Price. Glad to have my good friend, the one and only Bob Loeser. We call him Taxman Bob. Good to see you, buddy.
He's back.
He's back. We're
First,
back.
First off, I want to shout out. We have a fan. I had a client come in yesterday. I want to say hello to Everett.
Was my mom in your offices again?
Nope. Really nice guy, Everett. He says, I listen to your show monthly, and I'm saying I actually have a fan that listens to my show. Oh my gosh, I am so happy. But thanks, Everett. I appreciate your patronage as a client, and more so listening to this show with Kevin.
I get great feedback every time you're on. Lots of fun, and it's really one of the most lively segments I have, and I, for one, look forward to it, too, as I know you do, too. So we have a good time.
Yes, I do.
It's a good moment, and the reason why is because it's a lot of stimulating talk, and, of course, there's a lot of talk right now. This week, Wisconsin had a primary, and it was the biggest win, I think, that Cruz had, both in percentage win and in terms of number of delegates to be garnered at one time. So it was a good night for Ted Cruz, and really a horrific week for the Donald, not only because of what happened in Wisconsin, but his problems with women. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even talking about people he owes alimony to.
Right.
But when I'm talking about all those other women out there, it was a really rough week for the Donald.
I saw Marla on, what was it, Dancing with the Stars this past week when my wife was watching. I'm going, Trump's ex-wife? Oh, my gosh. All the Trumps are getting in the news.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all riding the Trump train.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your thoughts on Wisconsin?
I thought the swing the past 2 weeks was the proverbial Don opening up mouth and inserting foot once or twice. I don't think, it's that, and as we've talked in the past, the super PACs just dumping their shovel what on top of the pile, and people believe it. People believe the latest what that just hit the pavement. Yeah. Whether it's true or not, and that's the disconcerting. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, is sorting through the bull and coming up with what's real and what's Memorex.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If we remember those commercials from years back. Okay?
Yeah. Has something to do with tape, but is that stuff you use for Christmas presents?
That's right.
Anyway, was interesting, and I agree with you. Generally speaking, the masses are, well, you know how that expression goes. Right. And they have IQs or memories like gnats. Mm-hmm. And so I generally agree with you when it comes to those type of things. But, one of the things that we're seeing is that the story, for example, in the National Review, and you and I both know they are in the bath with Donald Trump. They've endorsed him. Yeah. The National Enquirer. Thank you very much. Sorry. I'm going to have William F. Buckley's ghost chasing me tonight. National Enquirer. They're going to be, they're in the bath because they're in for ratings. But these 5 women, even the Washington Post said there couldn't be anything more imaginary than these 5 women that Cruz has been having an affair with. It's just,
it could have been it could have been National Lampoon. Maybe that's what
it might as well been. Okay. Yeah. And so I'm glad, that story never got any traction. I guess because no credible media ever said anything about it.
But it's those things that you have the audacity, whether it's your super PAC, to be able to make statements like that and not be sued for slander. I mean, we heard it from or whatever. I mean, those are the things that ruin people's reputations, whether they're true or not. And I've seen it in younger people, or someone accused of cheating on an exam in college when he turned the paper in, and somebody for a prank pulled the paper out of the pile. And the professor said, "Where's your exam?" And he said, "You saw me. I dropped it off and handed it to you."
Yeah.
Sorry, we're giving you a 0. What? It's those types of things that you just shake your head and you go, stand up for what you have done or haven't done and be a man about it. Don't leave your genitals at the side of the bed in a jar, okay?
There you go. Next to your teeth. But
not in the same jar, please.
So, and so you also expressed some concern about the Cruz campaign. I was shocked to see Ben Carson not support Ted Cruz. Intuitively, naturally, he should have. And when you look at where they stand on the family values and those type of things, I'm sure you're among those who believe that bridge was burned by what happened with the super PAC. Talk a little bit about your concern about the Cruz campaign.
Well, I just don't think. I mean, two things. Okay, I mean, if just like an employer, okay, you're an owner of a business, you have 15 employees. All right, you don't substantiate what each and every one of them do or say to a client or other employee on a daily basis, but you do stand behind them in saying, that's wrong, I'm firing you, or that's wrong, you don't say it, and if you do say it, I don't want you as my employer, my super PAC, whatever the case may be. But these guys, and they're politicians, and Donald's becoming one of them, even though it's only 8 or 9 months. They're sleazeballs. Yeah. All of them, okay? I mean, Ted going around saying, oh, by the way, Ben's dropping out, and here's the new form from the government saying that we're the only candidate that rated B-, the rest of them rated D- or Fs, okay? There was no official document. And then going after Rubio a week and a half later going, well, there's speculation he's going back to Florida and he's dropping out. Okay, what was the intent of that? It wasn't the intent to hope that Rubio raised his value in the polls or Carson. It was for VOTES. Yeah. Okay, and if they can sleep well at night, despite, and again, the religious right, I'll call them, the ones that say, church and family and the whole bit, but then the same token, as people walking away, they've got their sharp knife and stabbing people in the back. Isn't that sacrilegious? I mean, I hate to be editorial here, but isn't it sacrilegious?
What are you talking about? Our segments are entirely editorial.
Right. Don't claim that you're religious and Monday through Friday you stab people in the back. I mean, that's just not right.
I will say this, the reality is that by law they're not allowed to communicate, but we know everyone with the super PAC watches TV, right, and they're reading articles and they're not hearing Ted Cruz condemn that, are distancing himself significantly enough for them to change their message.
I mean, by making a statement,
I will say that if I were the head of the super PAC, I would have gotten no indication that Cruz wanted me to stop what we were doing.
Right. And if that's the case, then in effect, in an indirect fashion, he's supporting it. I mean, right. Trump is doing the same with the tweets about Mrs. Cruz. Again, doesn't make it right.
Right.
I mean, you know about it. Even if they call you beforehand going, hey, just to tell you, 15 minutes from now, we're going after ABC, the super PAC commercial and campaign ad. And at least you say something like, well, I want you to pull it, or if we get bad reviews on it, I want it pulled immediately. All right? But you don't go about it going, well, I guess it's a couple more votes.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like the arguments used by nefarious teenagers who say, no, I didn't burglarize your house. No, you were in a getaway car.
Correct.
You were behind the wheel waiting for your buddy to come back out. Correct. It's kind of like, yeah, you didn't actually commit it, but you might as well have.
Correct.
So, want to wrap it up. Of course, you are the tax man Bob, as we affectionately call you. We do want to need to wrap up the segment. I do want to find out what's happening on the tax front. What do people need to know?
Well, we got basically 9 days or 8 days left now, and you need to remember everything you did in 2015, because for those that are in the upper classes, I'll tell them what's surprising to me is that extra Obama Medicare tax portion, which is 0.9% over, it's like $285,000. It's amazing how even in my estimates for last year, I undervalued those actual dollars of what they came by. So, I mean, for example, if you add inadvertently, I forgot to tell you, Bob, $200,000 worth of capital gains when we sold our house last year. Well, that's $200,000 at basically 1%. Yeah. That's another $2,000 in taxes.
Right.
Right. And so this bit that the rich aren't being taxed enough, you better open up your eyes, because that you believe that, and they've got a lady in the harbor in New York City that they want to sell you, and they'll sell you pieces of it for $1,000 a piece.
Right, absolutely. Very good food for thought. It's a scary situation out there. The disconnect by the vast majority of Americans when it comes to taxation makes a very entitled nation and a nation that has a very abusive attitude towards the geese that lay the golden eggs.
Right.
I mean, literally.
I mean, if you, again, whether Democrat or Republican, if you believed in Ronald Reagan's trickle-down theory, then every time someone towards the top is being taxed, it's going to affect your life somehow, some way. And I had a brief conversation with my son a couple weeks ago, came back from A&M, and his comment was Dad, I like Bernie Sanders because he's going to tax the rich and it's going to, cut it, whatever. And I said, do you ever think how that's going to affect me? He said, that's not going to affect you, Dad. And I said, let's say hypothetically that that's all I did was the wealthy tax returns. And I charged $15,000 per tax return a year and had, 1,000 clients. All right. So I'm making 1.5 gross. Okay. And I said, what if this tax takes place and one of the first services these people decide to cut or cut back on is mine? Bob, you're a great guy. You do wonderful work, but we can't afford 15 any longer. We can afford 12. I said, you're a math major. I said, tell me how much that affects my top line. So my God, Dad, that's 20%. That's $300,000. And I said, where do you recommend we take that out of our lifestyle in order for us to live comfortably? And he looked at me and said, college at A&M? And I said, bingo. And your car. And I said, all of a sudden you realize that you think you're nabbing the people that should be nabbed, and everyone else is getting nabbed to the bottom line, inclusive of the guy that's bagging at the grocery store who doesn't have 45 hours a week to work any longer. Now it's 32.
Yeah.
Right?
And we already had that situation, right?
Correct.
It's only going to get worse.
Correct.
All right, Taxman Bob, by the way, your website, your email?
Email address is taxmanbob@pdq.net. That's taxmanbob@pdq.net. That's TAXMANBOB @P as in Peter, D as in David, Q as in Queen.net.
And your phone number?
713-953-1272. And I'm going to tell you this, if you, listeners out there that haven't had a tax return prepared and are interested, if you can get us the information no later than morning of April 11th with some backup information we can talk to you on the phone about, we can finish the return for you by the 15th of April. We'll be happy to.
That's impressive.
For our listeners.
Thanks so much. When we come back, much more for you. I do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdatareview.com. And this is The Price of Business.
There's one for you, 19 for me. 'Cause I'm the